It's Tuesday, 18 June, the year of our Lord 2024. I want to thank everybody for sticking around for the fourth hour and the second hour in the evening. I've asked Rabbi Wolicki to give me some help here and assistance in putting together a show that can talk about what's the situation in Israel, since the mainstream media here, it seems so convoluted. We start with General Amir Avivi. General, what's the basic military situation, both in the south, but more importantly in the north, where I think supporters of Israel and people that have either close ties or great affinity to the Jewish people and in the state of Israel are quite concerned about what's taking so long to finish this situation in Rafah with the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas terrorists, and then this, it looks like the storm clouds of war gathering with the Persian militias in the north. Can you give us an overview?
Yes, definitely. So the IDF is on its way to win, decisively in Gaza. It has dismantled Hamas as a military force in the northern part of Gaza, in the central part, and in Khan Yunis. And now we're dealing with the last stronghold of Hamas in Rafah, the Rafah Brigade. The IDF announced yesterday that it has destroyed 2 of the battalions out of 4, and 2 others that are damaged, but we still need to deal with them. The operation is complicated because we are operating in an area that there are also hostages. The IDF managed to destroy completely the production capability of Hamas. They are not able to produce rockets, and also by seizing the border with Egypt and controlling it on the Gazan side, basically the IDF is preventing the buildup of Hamas again. There are a lot of weapons in the Sinai Peninsula waiting to come into Gaza, and we need to really close this border, destroy all the tunnels. I think that in the coming 2 or 3 weeks, we'll see more and more forces closing on Rafah, and we definitely want to see a decisive win. We are hoping that we'll reach the leadership of Hamas soon. And I think that in a month's time, we'll see more and more forces leaving Gaza and moving to the north. We cannot live in a reality where 80,000 Israelis are displaced. They are not at home. Their businesses are not working. They have mortgages. They cannot rent their houses. There are many challenges, and they are living in hotels, small rooms with all the kids. It's not a reality we can agree to. And I think that there is a very little chance of a diplomatic solution without American leadership, without willingness to threaten Iran and Hezbollah, without the willingness to use power. I think at the end of the day, we'll have to go to war in the north and destroy Hezbollah in South Lebanon, really degrade most of its capabilities, and restore back the citizens, enable them to come back secure to their homes in the north.
What you talk about destroying the military capability up in southern Lebanon and northern Israel. For our audience, isn't that, given the fighting capabilities of Hezbollah and the active involvement of Persia, isn't that going to be a lot harder than what you've had to do with a totally different type of war, but even in that regard, much harder than what you've had to do with Hamas in Gaza?
I think that in a war in Lebanon, what is going to be hard is the shooting to main cities in Israel. It's really about the war in the home front command, and not necessarily how difficult it is to maneuver inside Lebanon. Hezbollah has many rockets and missiles, and is able to shoot everywhere in Israel, all the way to Tel Aviv and beyond, and even to Eilat. Israel has very good air defense capabilities, but they're not 100% able to really prevent all the shooting. So yes, there will be challenges, but I believe that this war is going to be much, much shorter. It's going to be very intensive. Israel will attack fiercely. And also Lebanon needs to understand that they are responsible. They are a state. The fact they have a terror organization embedded within this state doesn't take anything from the responsibility they have on not attacking Israel. So I think that it's going to be an intensive war, but not necessarily a very long one.
We talked about the American involvement. The Biden administration support, every day it seems like more and more it's to have Israel's military stand down and not complete your objectives of ridding Israel of the Hamas terrorists and its military capability. Can you get our audience, how is that affecting IDF, your strategy, how you're deploying in the South, and what do you look forward to in the North? Because it looks to many Americans that the Biden regime here is actually closer to the Persians than they are to at least certain senior members of Israel's government.
So I think that at the beginning, we saw President Biden really standing with Israel, visiting here, sending warships, sending munitions, and giving us a big assistance. But at a certain point, it seems that issues that have to do with the upcoming elections, maybe other concerns have changed the policy. The pressure we had not going into Rafah was basically saying to Israel, lose the war. And we cannot afford to lose the war. We have to win decisively. And therefore, Israel couldn't agree to a reality where we cannot destroy Hamas. And I understand the sentiment that, okay, they want to wrap up, they don't want a war, they want everything to be quiet, but we have to look at the reality. We are fighting an existential threat. We are fighting an existential war for the existence of the state of Israel. It's not a joke. We cannot just stop. We need to really destroy Hamas completely and create a reality where there won't be, again, a terror army in Gaza. We need to release the hostages. Now, when the Hamas feels that U.S. policy will keep it alive, this is not helping bring back the hostages. To bring back the hostages, you need Hamas to feel an existential threat, to feel that they are about to be destroyed, and then maybe they will consider releasing hostages to gain their lives. So I think this policy that is not decisive, it's not only really making things difficult for Israel to win against Hamas as a terror organization, but it's also not assisting our hostages. If the Biden administration will say to Israel, eliminate them, eradicate them, attack them, then Hamas will be under pressure. They'll say, okay, we're being destroyed. What can we do? Maybe we need a ceasefire. But unfortunately, this is not the kind of policy and sentiment we are seeing, and this is making things much harder for Israel, and things are hard already. We are fighting 7 fronts, the whole Middle East. Israel is not supposed to be alone and deal with the whole Middle East alone. For this, we have the U.S., and we need leadership. We need the U.S. to lead the region, build a coalition, and deal with Iran. Iran is moving fast towards nuclear capabilities. This will endanger the whole globe. It will endanger every American. If Israel doesn't win decisively this war, it's coming to everybody. This extremism will continue in Europe, in the U.S., everywhere. We need to stop it here and now in this fight against Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran.
General, thank you. I know you've got some important meetings to go to. Is there any social media? How do people follow you?
Well, the organization is interesting because we're a combination of a grassroots movement and think tank. 30,000 Israeli officers and commanders in the organization, all of them retired and in reserve. And you can find us in our website, idsf.org.il, Israel's Defense and Security Forum, idsf.org.il. We do almost every day a webinar, really updating about everything that's going on in the war. We're working very closely with the government, with the Prime Minister, with the officers, in the IDF, so we're very, very updated about what's going on every minute in this war and overall about Israel's national security.
General, thank you. We'll push that out, make sure everybody gets on it. So thank you so much for taking time away. I know it's valuable over there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. Rabbi Wolicki, we're seeing in the U.S. that the war cabinet Bibi has dissolved the war cabinet. Is this because of what Biden came out said about the ceasefire? What's the political aspect that backs up the military here?
Well, the dissolving of the war cabinet, Steve, had a lot more to do with internal domestic issues. The lead diplomatic reporter, the lead political reporter for Ynet, which is one of the biggest Israeli Hebrew language news websites, Itamar Eichner, he's a very reliable reporter. He reported that the dissolution of the war cabinet was due to the fact that Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, who head the two right-wing nationalist parties, the right-wing religious nationalist parties, wanted to join the war cabinet after Gantz and Eisenkot left, and the war cabinet had shrunk down to only 4 people, and they asked to join it. And Netanyahu did not have any real leg to stand on to tell them that they couldn't join it. So rather than have them join, he dissolved it altogether. And this has to do with some games that Netanyahu was playing, trying to marginalize members of his coalition who are to the right of him. He's still going to continue to consult with the remaining members of the war cabinet, even though it won't be called that. Ron Dermer, his Minister of Strategic Affairs, Yoav Gallant, his Defense Minister, and Aryeh Deri, who's the head of one of the ultra-Orthodox parties, who Netanyahu is very close to and beholden to. He'll continue to consult with them, but it doesn't really have any strategic importance that they dissolve this war cabinet.
What, given the very direct assessment of General Avivi, both in the South and in what's happening in the North, given that the Biden regime has been a terrible partner to Israel and really hasn't had their back on the South, what is going to happen here when you pivot to the North? And he's talking about a short, but even more intense war that went on against Hamas. How are they going to handle that?
Well, I have all the respect in the world for General Avivi and for what he's doing with his organization. But I think that there's one point, and I think it's a critical point that I would disagree with him on, where he said that at the beginning of the war, Biden was kind of standing with Israel, and now because he's concerned about the election, you hear people who are on our side of things, Steve, say that the reason that Biden is pressuring Israel is because he wants to win Michigan, or he's trying to curry favor among the Muslim Americans. And I think that that's a distraction that makes us blind to what's actually happening. Because if you go back to the beginning of this administration, where right from the get-go, they were reversing Trump's policies. They were not enforcing the sanctions against Iran. They were appointing people to senior positions in the administration who are Palestinian sympathizers, who are anti-Israel. They started refunding the Palestinian Authority, even though it's a violation of U.S. law, of the Taylor Force Act, because the Palestinian Authority continues to fund terrorism. The direction of this administration's policy towards the Middle East is not about winning Michigan. It's not about winning the election. This is actually their direction. They are, they're in bed with China, and China, of course, has a strategic arrangement with Iran. And that's really what's motivating this administration. They do not want Israel to destroy Hamas and Hezbollah. So I have no good news for you, Steve. I believe that this war right now is Israel's moment of decision to decide if they are going to go it alone and defy the United States, or if they're going to continue to play this game where they're constantly buckling and bowing to American demands. And that's really where we are right now. It's a perilous moment. It's a perilous moment. Just today, Prime Minister Netanyahu released a video where he essentially said the quiet part out loud and basically said that the Americans, that Blinken and Biden, are withholding weapons and they are endangering Israel and making it more difficult for us to win the war. He basically called them out on this. If you're asking me to be a prophet and say what's going to happen next, I don't know. But I know that at the level of the people in Israel, at the level of the populace, everyone wants to roll up their sleeves. And for all the prices we're paying, we just had another funeral in my neighborhood of a young boy who was killed on the battlefield a few days ago. But nevertheless, that does not change the resolve. The people of Israel want to fight and want to win. And the IDF really believes that it has the ability to do so and that their hands are tied. That's another story that isn't really making it out there, Steve, is that in recent days, there have been senior field officers who have been resigning and leaving and speaking to the media, talking about the fact that while we have tactical victories at every turn and every encounter with the enemy, the tactical victories are not leading to an overall strategic victory in a timely fashion. That's causing more of our soldiers to die, and it's making it a much more difficult process. This whole thing about these stops and starts and scaling back the from 2 divisions to 1 division because of American pressure in terms of going into Rafah, and we didn't really go into Rafah. We're just parking the soldiers outside and going in for targeted attacks. The fact that all this is happening is very worrisome to the people of Israel, and we know that more and more Israelis are waking up to the fact that the United States does not have Israel's back. And where we go from here is a question, but I think the first stage of the process, which is realizing the truth of the U.S.-Israel relationship as it is right now, is well underway.
The last thing, General Avivi talked about and gave, at least to most to outsiders, a much more optimistic view of ridding the combat battalions in Rafah than I've heard before. Is that, even with tactical victories but no strategic victory, is that your understanding, that you may be just a couple of weeks away from actually finishing the job in the South if you were able to get on with it?
Look, it's tough for me to contradict Amir Avivi, who is one of the top experts in the country on what's going on. And as he indicated, he has his finger on the pulse. He's not just the head of this group of retired senior officers in this think tank. He's a major figure in the country. He's also very close, as he said, to the leadership. So if he says that things are going well and that we're close to victory, I'm happy to hear it. It's music to my ears. But again, I think that he underestimates the nefarious designs of this current administration, that the Biden-Blinken administration are dead set on saving Hamas from utter destruction. And what that's going to look like as the days and weeks progress, I don't know. I'm not as optimistic, but I'm not as in the know in terms of the military stuff as he is. I know that from what my kids tell me, and I have sons who've been in fighting right now. I have a son and a son-in-law who are in Rafah in the fighting. And from what they tell me, they also say that from their perspective as soldiers in the field, that it looks like things are going very, very well. But I think that has a lot to do with the tactical victories that we're having, and at what point at the political echelon the pressure from this current U.S. administration becomes too much and we end up being in a tight spot. I don't know. I'm not as optimistic as he is.
Rabbi, where can people get you? And also, could you repeat once again, we're going to put up on the Chiron, General Avivi's, the site for the retired officers that puts out a daily briefing. Where do they go for you and then General Avivi? Great.
So let's start with General Avivi. It's IDSF, the Israel Defense Security Forum, IDSF.org.il, as in Israel, IDSF.org.il. And again, they have daily briefings there. They have a lot of top military experts. And you can really it's the best way to really stay abreast of day-to-day updates on what's going on in the war. To follow me, I'm at Rabbi PW on Getter and on X. And of course, my show is Eyes on Israel on Real America's Voice on Sundays at 3 p.m. And you can also catch my podcast for longer form discussions, the Shoulder to Shoulder podcast, on all podcast platforms.
Rabbi, honored. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for setting us up with General Avivi. Amazing and fascinating interview.
Thank you, Steve.
Ben's going to join us in a while from Rome. We're going to get to pull the camera back and also talk about the U.S. and what's happening in Europe and what's happening particularly in Ukraine, and also some politics. But I want to go something that's a burning issue. It's not going to get better for Israel, and it's certainly not going to get better for the United States until we close the deal on this election. And increasingly, I think people are seeing the polls and saying, hey, this stuff looks great. These crosstabs look amazing. What President Trump is doing with these groups, you feel an energy, you feel an ascendant, but you realize when you see the Rachel Maddows and you see the McCabe's and the Comeys that there's no way that they could possibly let this election go. They're going to have to do something, and that means they're going to steal it. And so I've spent a lot of time with people in individual states, the battleground states in particular. And of course, there's none better than Cleta Mitchell. Cleta, you've got a particularly concern of and focus. I had MTG on the Saturday show, and she shares your concerns. The polling in Georgia looks amazing, but it's not just about polling. You've been very concerned about Georgia. And also you say there's a lesson in Georgia on these election commissions that you think you've now found out how these guys really want to roll. So take us through Georgia and take us through your concern about the deep state of election integrity, or I should say election theft.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Steve. I've been watching the left for a long time. I found a PowerPoint that I presented in December of 2013 to a group of conservatives, a big group of conservatives. In January of 2013, just after Obama took office for a second term, there was a big meeting of left-wing leaders in Washington, and they made a declaration that they were going to raise and spend millions of dollars to change the political system of America. Those are their words, not mine. And they set about to do that through changing political process. Every one of the things on their list was a political process issue, because the left understands something conservatives have never understood. A little bit better now after what we saw in 2020, but the left has always focused on process issues: the election process, the campaign finance laws, the process for confirmation of judges. In fact, those were the three big things that they started with in 2013. They were going to remove the filibuster for confirming appellate court judges. So they got rid of that, of the filibuster. They started that. The reason they did was so they could stack the D.C. Court of Appeals, the federal D.C. Court of Appeals. Have we not seen that play out against us? Because it was ruined starting in 2013 and 14. And the Fourth Circuit, which used to be one of the most conservative constitutional courts, is now a disaster, a left-wing disaster. But they wanted to get rid of voter ID laws. And then they took that and expanded that to spend between the Capital Research Center estimates that the left and leftist billionaires and foundations have invested between $11 and $14 billion, billion with a B, since 2013, changing the way America votes. And they've done it with the complicity of Republicans in state legislatures and Republican election officials. And so what we have now is we have a deep state in the election offices all over this country. And we see that there are hundreds of left-wing organizations funded by left-wing billionaires like Pierre Omidyar, an eBay billionaire, who started this in about 2013. He put $250 million of his own money into something called the Democracy Fund. Whenever you see something with the name democracy in it, just know that they're not our friends. They're not our friends. And so they devised all of this infrastructure for voting by mail. They created all these experts in the election world to go in and advise election officials in every little county, every state, every municipality. And so they have really infiltrated and trained and educated and indoctrinated the elections apparatus. And so we are up against a huge cabal, what I have realized is the deep state in the election administration of every election office in this country. And so that brings me to Georgia, where we have...
Hang on. Whoa. Hang on. Before you get to Georgia, I'm going to hold you through the break. 11 to $14 billion. And can you break that down for us in just basically huge chunks? Because that is a shocker, but that tells you the depth that they got.
Yeah. Well, what they've done is they've used it to create so many different entities. I can't even, if you go to Influence Watch, which is a tracking system for tracking nonprofits, donors, and all to leftist entities. And it's something that the Capital Research Center put together about 5 years ago. It's just terrific. I used to have to do all this research myself, and now I just go to Influence Watch. And when we find a new one, and I found 2 new ones in the last week, groups that I didn't even know about, which I'll tell you about. One of them it's a, quote, Republican group. And it's just parroting. It is parroting the left's narrative about elections. But Capital Research Center has taken all of the different. I did a presentation in 2019 where I did part of this. But what you have to do is you have to take each of these different funding streams and add them together. And I did something called the Funders Committee for Civic Participation. Funders Committee for Civic Participation. Just one. It has almost 100 left-wing groups, foundations, 5 Rockefeller foundations, the Kellogg Foundation. Kellogg's terrible. I never buy special K. Never buy special K.
Cleta, hang on for 1 second. We're going to talk Georgia. Shocking analysis by Cleta Mitchell on the Big Steal. Birchgold.com/Bannon. The end of the dollar empire. You see it happening over to Lucerne? Well, things are rolling. Check it out. All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. Birch Gold, times of turbulence. You think it's turbulent now? You ain't seen nothing yet. You heard the report from Israel. We're going to have Ben in a moment about Europe and Ukraine. But here in the good old United States of America, we know the geopolitics affects us everywhere, but this is going to be a total throwdown. I don't care where the polls are now. We know the numbers are great, but that only reinforces their maniacal focus to steal this. Birchgold.com. Find out what a hedge is. We give you the macro here every day on the War Room. Philip Patrick's team can give the micro. So go check it out. Birchgold.com/Bannon is the way you get there. And we give you access to Philip Patrick's entire team. So take advantage of it. The state of Georgia. You said there's something not right there. Walk me through it. Cleta Mitchell.
Well, I spent time in Georgia after the election in 2020. I was one of President Trump's volunteer attorneys. We filed an election contest under state law, never had a judge appointed to hear the case. So just remember when everybody says that President Trump lost all of his post-election lawsuits, well, he didn't lose ours because he never got his day in court. Just remember that. So I got a good dose about Georgia. And so I want to talk about 2 things related to Georgia. Let's start with the Fulton County situation. Fulton County is a problem, has been a problem, was a problem in 2020, problem in 2022, and it continues to be a problem. So I'll start with something about 2020, and then I want to tell you something that's happening right now. Well, both of these things are still happening. So there were 2 gentlemen who did a very thorough investigation and report and filed a complaint with the state election board in November of 2021. And they filed it after they had given it to Governor Kemp. And he had his people look at it for 7 weeks and then sent it over to the state election board and said, I think there's really something that you need to look at here. That was done in the fall of 2021. In May of this year, so fast forward, how long did they spend investigating this? If you should go and look at the videotape of the May 7th state election board hearing, where the Secretary of State's investigators made their report of this investigation. And let me just give you a few things that were confirmed in their investigation, as well as things that they just didn't look at. Fulton County deleted almost 400,000 ballot images from 2020, which was a violation of state law. And one of the members of the state election board, Dr. Jan Johnston, who's a retired OBGYN, and she is just fabulous. And she raked those investigators from the Secretary of State's office over the coals in May, and did it, just went through a litany of all the things that they had essentially not even looked at. She said, I've asked for this, I couldn't get this, I couldn't get this, I couldn't get this. And now you're telling us that this is your report. One of the things that was in an article earlier today that I saw was a report and a rebuttal that's been prepared by the two people who filed the original complaint, saying that the state investigators report said that their allegations about missing tabulators or non-existent tabulators was false. And they've written a rebuttal saying, no, it wasn't. And they've had the pictures and the serial numbers showing that there are tabulators that Fulton County said it had that actually don't exist. They ran ballots through more than once. They destroyed evidence. So now there is an effort to try to wrest control of the Fulton County Board of Registration Elections from the control of the bad situation that they've been enduring for a very long time. I might add that 2022, the state election board reprimanded the Fulton County Board of Registration Elections because they certified the primary returns in 2022, the May primary, before they had all of the precincts, before they had all of the numbers and all the votes. So the state election board said, you really do need to get the results before you certify. So fast forward to last year, the county board, the county Republican Party nominated two people to serve on the Fulton County Board of Registration Elections. That's how the process works. Each county political party nominates two people, and then they're the designees from the political parties, and the chairman of the county commissioners appoints the chairman, who's supposed to be unaffiliated. And of course, the person who's been the chairman is somebody who worked for Stacey Abrams, really unaffiliated, right? So the county commission refused to approve and confirm one of the nominees from this county Republican Party because he had done deep dive research as a volunteer into the Fulton County voter rolls and had filed many, many challenges to get the voter rolls cleaned up. And the county commissioners controlled by the Democrats, refused to confirm him. Now, there's no confirmation process. It's always just been whoever the parties nominate. It's been an automatic confirmation by the county commission. But not when it came to Jason Frazier, because he had filed all those challenges. So the county party ended up appointing another person who was confirmed and was sworn in February of this year, Julie Adams, who she's been a leader. She's trained thousands of people across the state of Georgia for poll watching and poll workers. And so you couldn't have anybody who's more knowledgeable. She knows more about the election law and the election code of Georgia than most lawyers in Georgia. And so she took office in February, and for the March presidential preference primary, she sent a list of things that she wanted to see, and she wanted to have access to go in to watch various procedures related to the election, was told she wouldn't be allowed to do that, and they were not going to give her any of the records. And so she voted not to certify the presidential preference primary in March because she said, I can't certify an election when I haven't had access to the records. So the Democratic Party of Georgia sent her a letter saying the role of the board and the board members is purely ministerial, meaning you're just ceremonial, honey. You have no authority. And so she has now, with the help of America First Policy Institute, their Center for Litigation that's headed by Pam Bondi, they have filed a lawsuit on her behalf suing the Board of Registration and Elections of Fulton County and the supervisor of elections, who is an employee.
This is what you're saying is your theory of the case, that this is a deep state throughout every county where they think that we take over the commissions, because correct me if I'm wrong, it's 4-1 in Georgia, correct? 4 Republicans, 1 Democrat on this board.
The state election board. The state election board is 4-1 Republicans to Democrats, but the county election board is 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and one Democrat. It's really 3-2. But they're saying
But
that.
what the administrative state on these states has said, you have no power whatsoever. You're just this is just a ministerial ceremonial position.
And what
how do we get that? Yep. Go ahead.
I was just going to say what I've realized that this is a pattern. This is something that they're doing nationwide. And when she filed this lawsuit, who were the first people to move to intervene? The Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party of Georgia. There are two county election board members in Arizona who refused to certify an election. They're being prosecuted by the Attorney General, or the Democratic Attorney General.
Felonies.
And we've had the same thing happening. They're saying that basically they want to upend our entire election system that is built on a system of checks and balances with the parties and candidates watching each other. They want to move it all behind closed doors, have everything done by this deep state that the left has spent this $11 to $14 billion building over the last decade.
Unbelievable.
It's pretty
Cleta,
scary.
where do they go for your election integrity network? Where do people go to get you?
Go to www.whoscounting.us, www.whoscounting.us, sign up, get the Citizens Guide. We'll have some recruiting you can also sign up for being a poll worker, poll watcher, join one of our national working groups. And I'm actually doing Twitter again, Steve, because I think that we need to support Elon Musk and his effort to support free speech. So at Cleta Mitchell is my Twitter. And I'll tell you what, it's going to take every one of us. I've got more stuff coming. I'll be back with more handouts and to-dos, because I'm telling you what, if the MAGA army doesn't get up and get out there and start doing some things, I'll have some specific things we need to start doing starting in July. But we cannot sit back and think that our vote is enough. It's not enough.
No. The $2 billion of Arabella and Tides and that, it's out to overwhelm us. This is going to be a populist army of the awakened. Cleta, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Honor to have you on here. Let's get Mo and Grace, if you can push that one. Everybody check it out. I've got a cold open, maybe the shortest cold open we ever have, 11 seconds for Ben Harnwell.
Meets the sky will
Rod Stewart was not, tell us what that, Rod Stewart was not expecting that, was he, Ben Harnwell?
No, Steve, good afternoon to you. He certainly wasn't expecting that. And then I don't think neither were the good folk of Leipzig in Germany expecting it as well. They'd gone to hear Rod Stewart at a music concert, not to be sort of bombarded with pro-war propaganda. But you had the images there you could see of Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian flag, coming up on the screen behind them. And you could even hear, it took a couple of seconds for the crowd to realize what was going on. And Rod Stewart has been gung-ho on the pro-Ukraine cause since the beginning of the war. When the crowd realized what was going on, and you could hear it in the background there, they started booing. The Germans, the good folk of Germany, started booing the images of Volodymyr Zelensky and the Ukrainian flag. That ought to be very, I hope our sociopathic overlords take note on this. Their window here, I think, of bombarding people and impoverishing them to fund this war is coming to a close. That window is coming to a close. This is the first time I've ever seen the anti-Zelensky sentiment resonate so strongly. And the thing is, Steve, it was entirely spontaneous. These weren't people who'd gone there on the pro-Putin cause to show their disagreement. These were just ordinary concert goers in Germany. And perhaps, Steve, I'd like to suggest that one of the reasons that the German concert goers are so against this war is because the German government has started to talk openly and out about changing the constitution to restore national service. That is to say, the conscripting of the nation's youth under military form. And quite naturally, Germans have made the calculation that this is not in their interest. So that, I was surprised to see this, but very pleasantly surprised. Shows people, outside, if you will, of the war room audience, people really are taking note. They're getting engaged, and they're not believing the lies that the government are telling them.
Talk to me about that, about the connected dots of the lack of recruitment. He's asking for more troops. They just came out and said it's 800 billion pounds, over $1 trillion to win. In the United States, in this last NDAA, they've authorized at least the beginning of registering with with the draft board, selective service, including women. Connect all those dots about how people are actually now it's starting to impact their life. If it's $1 trillion to win this, there's not going to be any free health care or free education in Europe overall. If people are starting to wake up to that, the great Ukrainian lie by our sociopathic overlords.
They certainly are starting to wake up to this lie, Steve. And I think your introductory question there really had it square on target. What's starting to affect this change is people are realizing that it is now, you could see the signs there right from the beginning that is affecting them directly. But unless you're that involved in studying cause and effect, you might be oblivious to what's going on. And of course, you might be, I think, a good 40%, 50% of the population, we saw this on COVID, will accept whatever the authorities, whatever the national public broadcasters feed into their brain. They're just going to accept that unquestioningly up to a point. And it's starting to change now. I did some research after yesterday's show, Steve, and I'd mentioned this on the show yesterday, but I wanted to drill down on the figures. I'd seen something, and I checked up, and it is actually, I was absolutely right. In 2023, the corporate tax revenues in the United States were $420 billion. That's all the money that the Treasury, the US state Treasury, had succeeded in getting in from all the businesses, all the commercial operations right across the country. 420 billion. Let's contrast that, and I want to make this point again, okay? Let's contrast that with how much this war in Ukraine has cost the American people. Monica Crowley, it was Monica, I pulled out her tweet. She in April of last year, so this is before the Uniparty's gift of 61 billion, okay? So this was April of 2023. Monica Crowley summed it up, and she said, look, you're being lied to. The war is costing a lot more than what the official statements are giving out. It's nearer 200 billion. Add on the 61 billion from this year. Speaker, no Johnsons, and on behalf of the Uniparty's little present that they wrapped the bow around, sent it off to Zelensky. So you're now talking at least a good 250, 260 billion for this war. Come back to that figure. That is well over half now of the revenue, total revenues. I repeat this: 420 billion in 2023. So this is costing Americans a lot. It's costing corp businesses a lot, and then you add on top of that the human cost. It's absolutely phenomenal, Steve, and people are waking up to it.
And by the way, the Ukrainians are telling us it's going to cost $1 trillion, 800 billion pounds. Ben, we got to bounce. Where do people go to get all your updates? Your posts are amazing. They get tremendous engagement. I want everybody to go to Getter, download the app, and follow Ben Harnwell. Where do they go?
At my surname, Steve, at Harnwell. And I always put the links on my Getter posts to the Rumble, where there's a little more space in the show notes to be able to everything, all this information I cite on the show. If you want to go to the video clip on Rumble and you're interested in following through, just click on there, follow it through, and you've got all the information. All I do is cite credible sources, and if you want to see what the sources are, then you can go onto the Rumble to track them down yourself. Thanks, Steve. Thanks so much. God bless.
And Ben engages with everybody, gives a comment. So you give a comment, you're going to engage. You're going to get to know Ben Harnwell personally. Ben, thank you so much, and thank you for the engagement with our audience. Incredible.
God bless you.
I want to thank our sponsors too. Patriot Mobile. Stop giving your money to people that hate you. You've got a great mobile service that selects from many different carriers. Now, they've got a special deal. You can get 2 carriers for the price of 1. Go check it out, patriotmobile.com/Bannon. You get free hookup. Glenn Story and the team have done more for this country, and particularly the state of Texas. They're a Christian company that has Christian values, and they put them in work every day. Just incredible. Patriot Mobile, over at patriotmobile.com/Bannon. Also, the team at Jace Medical. Don't get caught without your medicine. You cannot do that. And it's getting more and more sketchy every day. It's just not supply chains. It's just not cyber. It's just not bankruptcies. There may be even more. You go in the stores, you can't find them. You call the doctor, you can't find them. jacemedical.com/Bannon. Dr. Sean, the team set up an entire system built to make sure that you don't get caught short. One of the great MAGA warriors, Trump warriors, she was on 16 campaign, 20 campaign, White House, State Department. Now a Trump entrepreneur, a young MAGA entrepreneur out of the great state of Wyoming. Catharine O'Neill, give us a deal, baby. People love it when you come up with deals. Give it to us.
Hi, Steve. Thanks so much for having me back on. So we have a new box that we're selling today. It's the Mega Merriweather box. You get 4 ribeyes, 4 New York strips, flat irons, burger. It's a great deal. We're offering a discount today. War Room is the promo code for 10% off our Mega Merriweather box. It's a steak lover's dream. So we have a limited supply, as you know, Steve. So you got to go to our website at merriweatherfarms.com while supplies last. Get them before they go.
One more time. Give me what's in the Mega Merriweather box. This sounds amazing.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to dinner. What do you got?
Yeah. 4 ribeyes, 4 New York strips, which is one of my favorite cuts. 2 top sirloins, which is a really underrated cut. I eat them a lot. 2 flat iron steaks, another underrated cut, and our really beautiful burger patties. It's a great deal, a great variety. You can try lots of different things with this box.
And you put War Room in, and you get a 10% discount, correct?
Absolutely. We always like to take care of our War Room posse.
And it ships ASAP?
Yes.
Catherine, where do people go to Merriweather? Just go check it out. What's the site again?
Yeah, merriweatherfarms.com. We also have a live chat, so if you have any questions, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Yep, we have a great customer service team. They work round the clock to make sure that you guys get the best deals and taken care of.
Love you, girl. Get into the live chat or Merriweather Farms. Lou Dobbs is next. The great Lou Dobbs. And we are back at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow morning. See you then.